The only reason I got out of the race was because I didn't want to have a divided Democratic Party.
Do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people didn't show up.
Joe Biden stopped by The View Thursday to say he thinks he could have won against Trump last November. According to the former president, Kamala Harris only lost because of the sexist campaign run by Trump.
The former First Lady later joined her husband at the desk, and the pair were asked about that disastrous debate performance and the widespread concerns about Biden's mental acuity. Host Alyssa Farah Griffin asked about several books that outline his cognitive decline in his last year of his presidency, and that's when it seemed to go downhill for the president, who went off on a tangent and was later cut off by his wife. Take a listen.
We found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things and
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day.
Well, the timing, certainly, of her jumping in there is interesting.
Indeed.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that. And I think a lot of people watching this, Amber, saying, call a spade, you know?
Yeah, and I'm very curious about the decision to even do media at this point. I'm not sure what positive spin they were hoping for. I mean, going on The View, which is a generally very friendly show to Democrats and the left, and then still having this moment of a sort of the mumbling and the jumbling and the not quite answering the question is not going to give any more faith to the American people that Biden was totally fine in that last year.
Well, and the reality is he has gotten a lot of slack for deciding to run again and then not getting out early enough to really give Kamala Harris a fair shot. You know, she'd had more runway. A lot of people argue, we may be in a different situation. Maybe not, right? But there's certainly that perspective. And it seemed that, he's looking at this as maybe coming back to try to push back against some of that. Apparently, he's also writing a book. But I do think it was interesting, Jill jumping in that moment. And not to say rescuing, but there was a bit of, I sense where this might be going. And here's what I think is interesting, too. Nobody said he didn't work hard.
Right.
Nobody said that the former president didn't work hard. We know that being a president is an extremely tasking job. I mean, nobody is disputing that it's 24 hours a day, as she pointed out. But, and then she also said, and I think it's important that, because so often people want to go around the issue, and here's the thing. She said that there weren't people who were in the White House, but how often do they talk? They talk to media, and that's how sourcing has been done since, the beginning of time, right? So you don't have to be in there. And it's not just one source or two sources. It's multiple sources. It's several books coming out. We've even had authors on this show talking about it, about, him needing tape at one point, to be able to walk properly, apparently, or know exactly where he was going. And yes, these are allegations, but these are things that are coming out of the White House.
Right.
Not something that's completely foreign.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Jonathan Martin and Amy Parnes book is they conducted hundreds of interviews, they said, including people who were in the White House. There's the other book coming out, I'm blanking on the author's name, but they interviewed Ron Klain for that, who was one of Biden's top advisors, his chief of staff at one point, talking about how in that lead up to that debate against Trump, that he was leaving debate prep early to go fall asleep by the pool, that he seemed kind of confused as to whether he was president of the United States or president of NATO. A lot of really concerning things that are really well sourced by the people who have been digging into this post-election. And so I think that is a cop-out for her to say, well, they weren't actually there with Joe Biden, because the sourcing indicates that they were.
Right, and again, and multiple sources, and multiple, as you said, many interviews. Here's what else, if we zoom out for a second, I think, so the Democratic Party is watching this too. And they're seeing this tour, so to speak, of him doing more media. And I think they're also saying, why now? Mm-hmm. We're trying to get our messaging straight. We're trying to get, our ducks in a row right now. We're looking at the midterms. We're looking at what's happening with the tariffs. It's actually a moment for the Democratic Party to seize this moment and then you have him doing these interviews. So I think some are going to be looking at this and saying, hey, hold up, what's going on? And maybe he's just saying, I'm doing it anyway, I'm writing a book, and I want to do this, and I want to preserve, so to speak, my legacy. But it is a good question. Why now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially considering there's been reporting that the Bidens want to take over the DNC effectively, that they want to help control messaging, fundraising, the party infrastructure. Going out and doing this View interview and not performing well is not an indication to the Democrats that they want anything to do with that.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how long he goes on these media interviews, or if he's going to cut it short. Will Joe Biden always be with him to help potentially, how he will handle some of these questions going forward, and will there be some members of the Democratic Party who actually vocally say, hey, we need you to kind of take a time out?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. If there will be people behind the scenes going to him, going to Jill,
or in front, or
saying,
publicly on X,
yeah,
saying,
stay
like,
away.
Hey, now is not the time.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure there will be reporting on that too, because this is. I wish there had been more reporting while he was in office, obviously, but I think it's important for the American people now to see the truth of really what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, and we saw at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the media taking, some ownership, some who did take the stage, saying, we should have been better about our reporting. We should have been on top of it when it came to really reporting his cognitive decline. And so, that may, I'm wondering, have prompted the former president to now do this tour. We'll see.
Yeah, could be.
It could be. All right. Well, up next, we've got more to get to. Police suicides in Chicago are at an all-time high. But why is that? Our next guest weighs in. Stay with us.